Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to PUMOJA. I'm Walter Sadler. On the 26th of this month, Madison County voters will decide a $3.75 million bond issue for public education. The bond issue, school officials say, is to improve public educational facilities in the county. But chapters of the NAACP in the county have come out in opposition to that proposal. This afternoon, we'll be talking to some of the members of the civil rights organization about that. I'll be back in just a moment to introduce my guests. We have here with us to discuss this issue first Mrs. Elizabeth Washington. She's a resident of Madison County and also a parent. We have also with us Attorney Edward Blackmon. He's a legal advisor to the Madison County NAACP chapters. And next to him is Dean Rice, the president of the Madison Ridgeland Tougaloo branch of the NAACP. And we might note at this point that members of the Madison County School Superintendent's Office were invited to join us on this program to discuss this important issue, but they refused. School board members told us that Superintendent Robert Cox said that they had voted last night not to take part in this type of public discussion of the bond issue. So we're going on with it anyway. First of all, education. It says American is mom and apple pie. How can you oppose such a worthwhile venture if it's to upgrade educational facilities in Madison County?
Well, you know, that's not really true that education to blacks has always been as common as mom and apple pie and the flag and Coca-Cola and Chevrolet. Education for blacks has always been a struggle. And even during slavery, when we were denied the opportunity overtly, since that time we were denied the opportunity by tricks and other devious means. We're not necessarily opposing education in Madison County. We're opposing a bond issue that does not address itself to the entire spectrum of the problems that concern blacks in terms of their ability to get an education in the county school system. The bond issue that's being proposed would not necessarily in every aspect improve education in Madison County. And that is what we're reacting to now, the lack of effect, or the negative effects of that proposed bond issue.
What are its negative effects?
Well, the bond issue is for 20 years, $3.75 million to be paid for over a 3-year period. I'm sorry, 20-year period. 25-year period. If we don't speak now, then I'm afraid that we've lost our ability to address these issues for the next 25 years. There are many different aspects of the proposed bond issue that we have tried to address ourselves with and tried to cooperate with the school administration trying to iron out our differences. But just, for instance, the refusal by the superintendent and administration to participate in the public discussion. They've also refused to participate in the private discussion with those concerned citizens, namely the NAACP, to any meaningful level. The bond issue as it is proposed now could actually have ill effects, or have bad effects on the educational process in the county.
How so?
Well, let's start with one of the main grievances, should I say one of several main grievances. In the Flora area, which is part in the western part of Madison County area, town and area over there, there is a high school, or a school that is called East Flora School, which goes from grades 1 through 12. Practically next door, that's figuratively now, there's an elementary school that goes from grades 1 through 7. The elementary school has a black-white student ratio of 40-60, with the 60 being white. In the high school, it's about 99% or more black.
It's 100%.
100%.
It's 100%.
But when the white students reach the 8th grade, instead of going to the public school, which is East Flora, they then go out into, the parents send them to private academies, and of course that accounts for the fact that you do not have any white students in the East Flora school. Now, in the past, it has been demonstrated that where you have a dual school system operating, that the schools with the whites in them are going to be operated in a manner which will deprive the blacks school of a quality education, and that is exactly what's happening in the East Flora area. We asked the school administration to address that issue earlier. They failed to do that. Another point which is major concern is the area called Luther Branson School, which is
Let me add another concern on Flora, the Flora situation. We are also concerned about the utilization of resources in that area. Now, at Flora Elementary, grades 1 through 8, we have on the average of 27 pupils per grade level. This is not speaking in terms of section, pupil per grade level, which means, and on the 4th grade, I understand we have 14 students in the 4th grade. And what we would like to see in that area, all the students in the same grade to attend the same center, whereas we have 2 or 3 teachers in the 1st grade. One may have expertise in reading, the other may be arithmetic, and they could bring their expertise to bear on the needs of the students. However, with the present separation, this cannot be shared, and we consider this a waste of resources. Now, in the bond proposal, which there are going to be additional rooms at East Flora High School, 8 additional rooms, and no additional space at the elementary level. What we would like to see is maybe grade 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 being the elementary site, maybe 4 through 12 or 5 through 12 at the other site to accommodate the students.
Mrs. Washington, as a parent and as a resident of the county, and I haven't asked you your position on this, I assume that because you're here with these gentlemen that you, like them, oppose this issue, and why?
Well, one reason that I'm opposing it is because I feel that at this time we're not getting in the bond proposal the things that would really help our children to become better educated in that throughout the county. I feel that in part of the county we might be getting a pretty good deal, but I feel that in parts of the county we are not going to get what we really need to give our children a good education. And when I consider the total community, then I have to oppose the bond issue.
What's this going to cost in terms of taxes?
$3.75 million.
Somebody's got to pay that over life of the bond.
Yes, let me emphasize that the bond proposal is dealing primarily with accommodation, which does have some impact on quality of education. We're not dealing directly with it. However, this would be an attribute in terms of good accommodation. But that's what we're dealing with, accommodation.
Okay,
right
now, but when you talk about taxes, you talk about something that hits close to home, because undoubtedly it's usually assessed against the property owners in the county. Has there been any consideration as to how this will be repaid and exactly what effect it will have on those people who have assets in that county?
Well, the bond issue itself will be paid, the bond, if approved, would be paid by taxes, county assessments against property owners, and naturally the more property, the higher the value of the property that's owned by an individual, the higher the taxes. You know, as you know, taxes are designated, the amount is designated by millage each year by the Board of Supervisors, and of course the millage rate will go up this year if the bond issue is approved. Will go up to pay the yearly assessment on the bond.
Well, there hasn't been an awful lot of publicity surrounding this whole thing. In your estimation, is there any reason for that? I mean, other than this show, I'm not aware of any other public forum that's been provided.
Well, there were meetings around the county. I think, according to the superintendent, they held meetings earlier around the county to try to get some input. Now, that was low-key, and in terms of positive things, publicity, I'm unaware of anything other than that. It could be that they're taking the position that the less said, the better off they are. It's kind of like a candidate who campaigns on no issues, and in hopes that if he doesn't raise any issues, the electorate will kind of pass over and vote for him anyway. And this could be the problem with this bond issue, that it's kind of a no-issue bond issue.
But you say it's going to take 60% of the voters who vote on that particular day to pass this.
That's correct.
we have been concerned about that. We have been working to some extent with the board for the past 14 months. And we have been aware, the NAACP, of the information that was available. And it was our concern that it was not shared with the public freely. And another concern related to that is that originally the Board of Supervisors, upon the recommendation of the school board, had set the election or the voting on the bond proposal on June the 6th. However, later the board changed the date from June the 6th to May the 26th, which aroused concern again because it set it on Friday. The 26th is a Friday, which is an unusual day to hold an election. And we are somewhat suspicious of the motive for this, because on a Friday, being payday for many citizens of Madison County, we feel that this will interfere adversely with the turnout. And this may have been considered and changing the date.
Okay, we'll be back in a moment to further discuss this issue. Continuing our discussion this afternoon on the Madison County Bond issue, we have with us three residents. We have Mrs. Elizabeth Washington, Attorney Edward Blackmon, and Dean Rice, who's the president of the Madison Tougaloo Ridgeland branch of the NAACP. And we might also note again that officials of the Madison County Superintendent's Office were invited to appear on this program with us to discuss this issue, and they refused. One of the things you do when you put yourself on record, as you have in this matter, is that in the years to come, if indeed overcrowding does result, who can you blame? Who can you run to then and say you didn't foresee the problem?
We feel that the situation at hand is due to the administration not planning and projecting ahead. We wouldn't necessarily blame ourselves for this. We are opposing we have a specific reason for opposing this bond proposal, and it does not mean that it has to be delayed indefinitely. There will be other times that it can be passed, or we would accept it if under the right conditions.
In talking earlier, it was mentioned that you felt the bond issue as proposed would propound the problem. Now, can you elaborate on the problems that you see, and how will it cause those problems to worsen?
Now, we discussed flora, what we would like to see there. Now, in the Luther Branson area, the citizens of that area would desire that a high school be established at Luther Branson. And that is because students are transported to Velma Jackson, and they are riding on an average of 3 hours per day, and that's to and from. And they would like to see a high school in that area, and that's their main reasons for opposing it in that area.
And
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And we feel that if we do not address this issue through this bond issue, that we will have no chance, hardly, in the future to address it, because if we smooth over now and pass the bond issue, if it indeed it is passed, or we will then have no grounds, so as to speak, on which to fight for this school, high school.
Is this a black-white issue, as you see it?
Well, I don't see it as a black-white issue per se, but of course you have black participants and you have white participants. The administration is white and we are black, and to that extent it is a black-white issue. But education should be a concern of both black and white in the county. Unfortunately, it's not a major concern of whites when it comes to black, especially with this administration. Now, our discussion earlier concerning a propoundment of existing problems with this bond issue. We have kept in mind throughout this that not every change in education is a good change. Just because we're getting shiny new buildings or they're offering shiny new buildings doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a glorious new era in quality education for people or students in the county. We thought we had a good situation when the schools were integrated in the state, and since the integration, we've discovered from a black perspective that it has been very, very disastrous. And we are very careful now in monitoring every change, well, major change in education, especially in our county. The bond issue has failed to address itself to, well, potential growth in black areas. Everybody talks about growth is going to occur in the Madison Ridgeland area because of the reservoir situation. Whites are moving in down there. We expect growth in black areas in the county. Just because we're not controlling the government machinery now doesn't necessarily mean that we as black citizens are not planning for growth in other areas of the county for black people. And that is especially true in the area, in the Flora area. It is already present in the Luther Branson area in the eastern part of the county, where students live so far from the high school they have to be bused for a period of 3 hours there and back. If we allow that, if the bond issue passes now, who knows when we'll have an opportunity to address ourselves to that very, very serious problem.
Well, now what you're telling me is that school officials are building institutions to aid white flight.
I didn't say that. However, that could be it could be a possibility. Now, one must consider that you can create the potential for growth. Not that that growth has to already be there. And I'm leery of catchy phrases like potential growth, because if you build a school, a good school there, you're going to find that you're going to have people moving in, you're going to have industries locating in the vicinity, and therefore you create growth rather than meet a potential for growth. So if you build a school in the high school in the Luther Branson area, which is a black area, you're going to create the potential for growth there too. Likewise, if you improve the situation over in the Flora area, you will create a potential for growth. So we have to be very leery of catchy phrases that don't mean anything, and look behind them and find out what the true meaning is.
You had something you wanted to add to that?
Oh, I was going to say just about what he said. You can create growth, and industry and factory like to locate where there are people who are going to be educated enough to take the jobs in these factories. So you can create growth.
You mentioned earlier that there had been some discussions with the Madison County School Superintendent, Robert Cox. I'm going to ask you to relay to us, the viewing audience and myself, the reaction of the school superintendent to the proposal that you have brought to him and his willingness to bend and be flexible on this matter.
I'll give you one example of the attitude of the superintendent and his administration toward black people in that county and what we were proposing. We spoke of the Flora area. Now, Madison County was integrated like most counties in this state under a court order. The county school system was no different. Any change in the system would require going through the Justice Department and getting their approval, and possibly in this case going back to the court to get court approval. Mr. Cox stated that I agree with you, that the situation is bad, it needs to be corrected. But let's not do anything before the bond issue is brought up, because we don't want to make white people angry. They may not support the bond issue. My reaction to that was, what about black people who are already angry? That shows a lack of concern, a lack of major concern for the feelings of black people, and therefore there is a major fear that he may carry over this lack of concern if the bond issue passes, and his administration of the funds from that bond issue. And I'm afraid also now that even what has been promised may not be forthcoming. In other words, we only have a proposal. They don't even have the architect's actual drawings to go by now. What we're going to give them is a blank check for $3.75 million and say act in the best interest of the county, and we have to put our trust in them. Their reaction to in our meetings that we've had with them has led us to believe that we cannot trust them to do what is right and the honorable thing in terms of applying those funds in the best interest of all people, including black people in the county.
We'll pick up we'll have more comments on the Madison County Bond issue following this message.
He doesn't like.
Continuing our discussion of the Madison County Bond issue, we have here with us three people who are knowledgeable on that subject, and we've been talking about what it will mean and what it will cost. One of the other things that I'm concerned about is what kind of relationship does the NAACP have with the white community in Madison County, and how do they feelings reflect on this matter? Or have there been any communication at all in terms of their aims and objectives in association with those aims and objectives of the NAACP?
I think the attitude has been more or less a wait-and-see attitude, because the NAACP in Madison County has not been assertive, very long. Let's talk about the past 8 or 9 months. So I think it's just simply a wait-and-see attitude.
Okay. Just some brief discussion, if we can. How do you assess the quality of education in Madison County at the present time?
We feel generally it can stand great improvements, and we feel that adjacent to Hinds County, or the Jackson Public School System, which has many innovative programs and what have you, we feel that we could do as well or perhaps better with the resources we have. And we have observed such as common as physical education. We have observed that being cut out of our schools. I think maybe now we have one school, maybe two, with a physical education program. As common as that is throughout the nation, we do not have that at a number of our schools in Madison County. We would also like to see full-time counselors to work with our students and to advise them and direct them. And we do not have that, a full-time counselor, in either of our schools. And just innovative or new programs directed at the basic needs of our students in terms of the problems that have been identified nationally in terms of reading, writing, and arithmetic. We certainly need that in that area. We're certainly not moving with the times.
Mrs. Washington, you feel the same way?
I do feel the same way. I feel that a lot of improvement can be made in certain schools also. As we stated before, you know, East Florida, for example.
Mr. Black?
I'm a little more hard in my view in terms of the situation, assessing the situation in Madison County. I think it is at its moralist low in terms of the education in the county. Education begins with the teachers, I think, and when you have teachers who are being dehumanized, when you have the principals who are also being dehumanized, they're robbed of any of their abilities to be innovative, their ability to speak on the interests of their own interests and their voice their concerns concerning education. They don't stand, especially black teachers, they don't stand in as good role models for the students in the school now. Principals who are not allowed to function as principals completely. This situation exists, and of course I have not confirmed this, but I must believe the participants who were there, that in a meeting in which there were a number of whites present, that the principal of the Rosa Scott High School was advised that, was told indirectly, he was present that is, that if the bond issue passed, there would be a new principal who would be white at the Rosa Scott School. Now, Rosa Scott happens to be one of the schools which they propose to spend approximately $1 million to improve, and is also located in what is called that new growth area. And they already said they're going to provide for 2 administrations. Now, we know what has happened in the past when you had so-called improvement in education. We lost our black principals, and they either went to the classroom or they became assistant principals or elementary school principals, with the chief principal being a white principal. And of course, this situation is probably what they have in mind for the Rosa Scott School. But even if the bond issue passes, we're not going to stand by and let that happen, not without a major fight.
We might note again that officials from the Madison County School Superintendent's Office were invited to participate in this discussion on this program, and they refused to do so. Our thanks to our participants for joining us this afternoon on PUMOJA. As we said, that vote comes up on the 26th. It's a $3.75 million bond issue for public education. Some people say that it will improve educational facilities in the county. Other people say that it will only propound the problem. But our thanks to our guests for joining us this afternoon. By the way, we'll take 60% of the voters who are there and present and voting on that day to pass that proposal. Our thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Walter Sadler. Good afternoon.
PUMOJA is a public affairs presentation of WLBT. The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station. Your comments are welcome. Address all letters to PUMOJA, Post Office Box 1712, Jackson, Mississippi 39205.